Trey, get off your calculator. Okay. So, yesterday you were taught how to find any number along a geometric sequence. We also have a formula for how to take all those numbers and add them all up. Okay, so that formula is reflected here. Okay, just like arithmetic though, a sub 1 is technically the second number, right? When we did that. Now, a sub 1 is the first number. Okay, again, that is the most confusing part of it all. Okay, but they're going to denote it on your formula sheet as a sub 1, so I need you to just understand that it's technically the first number when you do the sum. So whether it's an arithmetic sum or a geometric sum, a sub 1 becomes your first number and not the second number.
I got a question. Why don't they just make it like
easy?
Yeah. Like if it's the first number, why did they make it
a sub 0?
Yeah. Why did they do it?
Yeah, can we have some?
Is it like different people making these?
I think I want.
Have you seen the crazy people that come up with mathematical things?
Boy.
We're all insane. Okay, so nothing we ever do makes sense.
Is it like different people making it, or is it just one person and he decided just to mix it up?
I'm sorry.
I honestly couldn't tell you about this. I have to do some research.
I think I want Hamilton back.
R is still your common ratio. What am I multiplying by? Okay. Remember, you can always find that by taking any number and dividing by the number that comes before it. Okay. N represents your number of terms. Okay. So, if you look at number 1, what is my value for a sub 1 if I'm finding the sum? 8. What is my value for R?
4. Wait, no.
What am I multiplying by? So remember,
5.
12, any number, divided by the number that comes before it. So that gives me an R value of 1.5. Okay, if you cannot easily see it, I need you to divide and find it. Finally, how many numbers am I trying to add up here?
6.
There are 6 numbers. You can easily count this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, why don't you plug this into your calculator? 8 times 1 minus my R value, which is 1.5, raised to the 6th power, divided by 1 minus 1.5.
That's the formula.
That's your formula. Huh?
I got 160.
Just as you see it. 8, open your parentheses, 1 minus 1.5, raised to the 6, close your parentheses, divided by, open parenthesis, 1 minus 1.5.
I got 166.
And I agree. 166.25. So if you would take all of these numbers and add them up, it should equal 166.25. Number 2.
Wait, so what exactly did we just find?
We found the sum of all of these numbers. This one, you could have just added them all up.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, though, you can't. You have to use the formula. What is a sub 1 in number 2? It says find the sum of the first 10 terms of a geometric sequence with the first number of 1 and a common ratio of 2.
1.
So a sub 1 is 1. What is my R?
2.
2. And what is my N? 10.
1, 2, 10.
So 1 times 1 minus 2 raised to the 10th divided by 1 minus 2. 1023.
That number's gonna be that big.
Jeez.
Well, you think about it, it's being multiplied by 2, so your sequence goes 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. And you're doing it for the first 10 numbers. Yeah. Okay?
Hey, I will need to interrupt.
I'm sorry. Submit.
So this is, I put in the same thing. I put in the same
She's
thing.
still in guidance, so.
I got 255, 275.
What?
Can you show me where I went wrong?
This her paper too?
Oh.
You did 1 minus 5.
Oh.
So watch. You get 7.
Calculator cheats.
I'm gonna show everybody that later when we do the other part.
Cheat code.
Cheat code. Okay. Number 3. Please do not get confused with number 3. This is saying 4 plus 4 times 0.3 plus 4 times 0.3 raised to the second. Such and such until you get to 4 times 0.3 raised to the 11th. What is A sub 1?
4.
4. What is my ratio?
Hold up.
0.3.
How did you get that?
That's
what I got. Multiplied by.
It's the one we're multiplying by each and every time. 0.3. What is my N?
11.
Remember, just with the way with arithmetic, where it went from 0 to 11, how many numbers are there actually?
10.
12.
12.
But the first 2 don't have exponents. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, because the third one starts at 2.
Right. So that is 1 and the other one is 0.
Okay.
So it goes from 0 to 11, which is technically 12 numbers. Okay? So 4 times 1 minus 0.3 to the 12th divided by 1 minus 0.3.
Probably the hardest part is finding what you have.
Mm-hmm. 5.71.
There's no note card on this test.
I'm giving you all of the formulas. What could you possibly need to write on a note card?
So that no.
That's a no.
Wait.
Okay. The best part about this sum formula is you remember back when we did arithmetic and you didn't have the last term and you had to go through the whole entire shebang of finding the last term before you could actually use the formula? That will never happen with geometric.
Jesus, I got another
Okay.
answer. Oh, wait, yeah, okay, I know what I did wrong. Second enter, oh, that's fire.
So I need to come back and look at your arithmetic?
He said, yeah.
Okay, number 4. Find the sum of the first 8 terms. We go 5, 15, 45. What is A sub 1?
5.
5.
Oh, my God.
What is my R value?
3.
3. And my N value is
8.
8. So 5 times 1 minus 3 raised to the 8th divided by 1 minus 3. You say you can come up with that?
You not saying that. You not.
I got,
But it's not.
I got.
yeah, I could, but
I want to do 5 times the first part and divide by
That's a favorite.
you know, clear on
You erased it, so I can't look at it and tell you what you did wrong.
Do integration, you want white shirts.
How is N8?
Oh, it's never mind.
It's gonna get them. It's gonna get them.
Because you went back too far. The first one that you pulled was the one that it needed. You decided to go back. It's still going backwards from where you had just left off. It's not going to repeat itself. You cannot erase it if you want me to look and tell you what you're doing wrong. What did we get for number 4?
44,000.
I got.
No.
I got 16,400.
That's another 4.
16,400.
What number?
I said it first.
The answer is 16,400.
16,400. Jeremiah's like on number 5 over there.
It's 16,400.
100%.
I'm done.
And yes, your answer is correct. Okay. Number 5. What is A sub 1? 10. What is R? 2.7. And what is N?
9.
9. Okay, remember it goes to term 8, which goes from 0 to 8, which makes it 9. So 10 times 1 minus 2.7 raised to the 9 divided by 1 minus 2.7. And what does that give me?
I don't know.
Hold on, you gotta give him time. Don't answer.
Come on, Lewis.
I got 44,850.57.
44,850 and 57 hundredths.
344 if you want to get technical.
Finally, the last one. Common ratio is 0.7 with an initial population of 4,500. What is the sum of the first 23 terms? So, what is A sub 1?
4,500.
4,500.
7,000.
175.
0.75 and N is
23.
23.
And
So 4,500 times 1 minus 0.75 raised to the 23rd power divided by 1 minus 0.75.
no, not yet, Jim.
Congrats, Miss Smith.
Let it just work.
One
I gotta get this.
I got 17,975.91861.
Lou, you gotta give me some time, bro.
Big Lou.
I'm still working down.
Hey. You need time.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, no.
Ah.
I get everything. I'm just slow to y'all.
I was trying. Well, I messed up a few times. The legal stuff.
Zero.
It's not saying it's going from 0 to 23. It just says you have 23 terms. The only time you have to worry about adding that extra one is when they write it out like this. Okay. Good question.
Is it 40? Oh, shit.
I was like, one in the
Yeah. The only time you ever have to worry about adding that extra one is if they just give it to you as a sequence. Okay. Example 3. You have an imaginary infectious disease called the X virus that has no known cure.
Oh, that's terrible.
The first appearance of the X virus occurred in 2005, when a total of 5,000 cases were reported. The virus will spread at a 40% annual rate of growth. How many estimated cases will there be over the 10-year period? So, what is A sub 1?
See, 5,000.
5,000. What is R?
What is it, 0.4?
4.40?
Yep.
I knew that.
1.40?
What?
1.40.
1.40.
I
What
knew
does it say we're doing? It's increasing. So if it's increasing by 40%,
You got
that is 40 over 100.
I knew that.
So that's a total of 140%, which is 1.4 as a decimal. So please don't forget that. If they give you an R value that is a percentage, you need to decide, do I add it to 100 because I'm growing, or do I subtract it from 100 because I'm decreasing? Okay, you have to keep that in mind. What is my N value here? 10. So we've got 5,000 times 1 minus 1.4 raised to the 10 divided by 1 minus 1.4.
Oh, I put the wrong. Well, somebody beat me to it. I put the wrong thing.
1,000.
Oh my God.
Wait. $349,068.32.
31.3.
Okay, remember though, we're talking about people. You can't have points something of a person. So there are approximately 349,068 cases of the virus right now.
Is it deadly?
Says has no known cure.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Like you get it 3 days, you gone.
You
We have
don't.
a third of the person that got no life.
I mean, it doesn't say that you're gonna die in 3 days, but there's nothing you can do to cure it.
No, I got the X virus. You got another class.
Boy.
I mean, if you've got the X virus, I'm pretty sure we all have it by now. Thank you for spreading your infectious disease.
Really, man? You couldn't have stayed home?
Right.
Good answer. Good answer.
All right. Everybody's favorite part. Part 4. It's all about the money. How much money are you going to make? So, the first one we need to talk about is annual interest formula. What does annual mean? Yearly. This is only being compounded every year. So, P sub 0 is the principal or your initial amount that you're investing. How much money are you putting in? Okay. N represents the number of years since you've invested. And I, and the most important part about I, is your interest rate as a decimal.
So that's like your ratio, common ratio.
Okay. So the best part is this is always growing. So we don't have to add it to 100. That's why they put this part into your formula. 1 plus. That does what we did where we added 100 and then moved your decimal. So you no longer need to worry about that with interest. So take a look at example 1. Suppose you invest $367.51 in an account that pays an annual interest rate of 4.5% a year, and you let it grow. How much money will there be in the account at the end of 7 years? So the first number I need, how much money did I put in?
$367.51.
Okay. 1 plus, I need to add on my interest rate as a decimal. Good. So this is 4.5. Remember, as a decimal, we move it over 2 spaces. And when there's a little hump there, we add a 0. So your interest rate is 0.045. Raised to the 7. We're doing this over 7 years. How much money do we have now at the end of 7 years?
Let me do it real quick. No.
Come on, Shaka, what you got?
Well, that's
351.68.
No.
weird.
Nah, Brenda, that's wrong. Let me do it again. Let me check it.
I got $500.
It should be $500.13.
See, look, since y'all did that, I'm about to say $500 and what?
Bring it up.
13 cents.
Let me see.
She did it wrong.
What did I do? Oh, okay.
Oh, she really did it wrong.
Yeah,
Boy,
it needs to be on the outside. It needs to raise the
Yeah.
whole amount. Okay. Part B says, how much money is in the account at 7.5 years? Okay. I'm going to give you the answer and you need to tell me why.
Because. Said so.
What?
Because it's
I got
annual.
money in the
'Cause it's
hand.
annual.
It's annual. This is annual, which means you don't get any money at the half-year mark. You don't get it until 8 years. So technically it has been building, but you don't get anything until after 8 years. Okay? So that one is the same.
That is how some banks will do, though. I swear it will. They give you 7.5 year on the annual hold up. So I gotta wait that half a year
Right,
before I can get my money.
right.
I mean, it's not long, but
Suppose you invest $600 into an account. Guys, stop. Why do I have to hear you while I'm talking? And then when you get your test and you fail it and you look at me like, I don't know why. Well, maybe because you're not comprehending anything I'm saying as I'm teaching. Stop. Suppose you invest $600 into an account that pays an annual interest rate of 6.5% a year. After 10 years, how much money do you have in your savings account? So how much money am I putting in?
600.
600 times 1 plus 6.5% as a decimal is what?
0.06.
And what am I raising this to?
10.
The 10.
Let me do it.
1,106.
Okay, I need you all to stop shouting out answers because other people need to make sure that they're plugging it in and getting correct answers.
Okay, I think
We're
I'm ready.
taking this a little too far now. I understand y'all want to have a race.
No, it's not
It's all
racist.
good.
I just want to answer it.
He doesn't want to race. He just wants to get the answer
I
before
got a
everybody
question
else.
though. Answer. 1,000. No, I ain't gonna do it.
No, I think we're gonna let Maria answer this one.
Where you need help? You can phone a
She
friend.
got this.
I got it. I think,
What you
I
got?
believe in you, Maria.
6,390.
It's okay. Let me see. But this is where I fix the problems. Y'all don't
Oh,
know how
I
to fix
see.
the problems. You forgot the little carrot key to raise it to the 10. So watch. Okay, second. Hit enter.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, what we get?
1,126.28247.
We can stop right there because it's money. So we're looking at $1,126.28.
Supposed to be the money sign.
Listen, it didn't go through it. Let it go.
It looked like a 15 to me.
Oh, God.
Okay. How much additional money would you have if you let it sit for an extra year?
Oh, so I can find a difference. Huh?
No.
600.
Not yet.
Calculations.
Okay, if I'm doing it for an additional year, how many years is that?
11.
11 total. So no, you cannot just go back and add 600 because the interest changes everything. So we need to literally go back and do this for 11 years. What'd you get, Lewis?
1,199.
Okay, that's not my answer.
Damn.
See, no, it's not.
It's correct, but it's not my answer.
So we ain't finished yet.
Oh, you gotta subtract that by that.
I have to subtract these two now because it says how much additional money. So this is what you would have at the end of 11 years. We need to know how much you actually gained between year 10 and year 11. So we have to subtract.
$73.21.
Damn.
Oh, see,
$73.21 is all you gained within a year. But guess what? That was $73.21 that you didn't have before.
That's what I be saying.
I don't care if you give me $5. That's $5 I didn't have.
All for not touching it.
right.
That's what you get that money for. Just for not touching it.
Okay? Your formula is not going to change for example 3 and 4, but you have to be careful about what they're saying. So now we're investing $3,420 into an account that pays 7.5 annual interest. Suppose in 5 years, the interest rate is then going to drop to 5.5%, and you keep the money in for an additional 3 more years. How much money do you have at the end of the 8-year period? So first off, how much money am I investing?
3,400.
Okay, what is the interest rate when I first put it in?
7.5%.
Written as a decimal is,
0.075.
okay, raised to the what?
5.
5. 5. Okay, remember, it's only at this interest rate for 5 years. So this has to be raised to the 5. What do we get at the end of those 5 years?
49,900.
What's your mean?
Yeah.
4,900.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And 9.
Not 49,000.
$4,909.85. Okay, we're not touching that money. It's going to stay in for an additional 3 years, but my interest rate has changed. So we're gonna now multiply this by 1 plus
0.05.
0.055. My interest rate has now dropped. We're now at 5.5%. Okay, and this is going to continue for another 3 years. So we now raise this to the third power.
5,764 35 cents.
That's 65.
That's 64.
No, it should be 65.
Oh, I didn't put the 85 cents.
Yeah, you cannot skimp on the money.
Then you gotta add them, right?
Don't skimp on the money. Put every penny you can into it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is that the total?
Yeah.
I thought maybe you had to add.
No, that's it.
You're going off of it.
Okay. Part B says, how much money did you lose out on in the last 3 years of your account?
That's when you switch it to an 8, right? And then
Okay. So this is where I switch it to an 8. So part B, we're going to pretend that the rate never dropped, that it stayed at 7.5% interest for the entire 8 years. So it's still the same formula, but now we're going to change that 5 to an 8 and pretend that it never dropped. How much money should we have had at the end of 8 years if my interest rate never changed? $6,099.49. Okay.
He missed that one.
How much do we lose out on? Well, now we need to subtract the 2. 5, 7, 6. Whoa, that looks like a.
$334.14.
14 cents.
Yeah.
Okay. We've missed out on $334.14. Okay, so if the interest rate drops partway through, you actually lose out on money. Okay, one more of these ones. And then we're gonna do compounded daily, quarterly, and monthly and see how that changes it. And then we need to talk about annual yield and we are finished. And annual yield we've already done technically. It's the same thing as percent of change, which we did at the beginning of 10.3 yesterday. Where you had to take the new divided by the original minus 1. Okay, so example 4, you invest $4,000 into an account paying 6% annual interest. If you can find me an account that pays 6% annual interest, please let me know. Okay, suppose in 6 years, the interest rate will drop and we're taking out $1,500. And then we're going to leave the leftover for another 4 years. They want to know how much money do you have at the end of the 10-year period. So how much money am I investing? $4,000. What's my interest rate? So 0.06. Okay, how long is this happening for? 6 years before something happens. So we need to find out how much money do I have at 6 years.
Please don't say it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Trey got that picture right on.
Alright, now we're ready.
Trey, you want to phone a friend?
We don't do other people's work in my class. Trey, how much money do we have?
I think I did it wrong, but I say like 5,674.07%.
It should be 08.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Are y'all rounding? Yes, you need to round to the nearest penny.
You don't wanna miss out. on
Right, you don't want to miss out on any money. So if it's 0.075, you give yourself that extra penny.
You're gonna need it.
Okay, so now at the end of 6 years, it says we're taking out $1,500. So we've got to take away that $1,500. How much money do I have left then?
$4,174.01.
Okay, this amount of money is going to stay and work another 4 years through. So my interest rate hasn't changed. So this is still 1.1 plus 0.06. And it's staying in for another 4 years. So you're gonna take the money that's left over and do the same thing.
So for 4 years.
How much money do we have now?
5,269.63.
We have $5,269.68. Okay, part B says, how much money would you have had if you didn't need that $1,500 at 6 years? So if we didn't take that away and we just left it for the 10 years.
Do you come somewhere on this? Wait, hold up.
Good. Okay, so 4,000. This time we're not taking any money out. We're just letting it sit for 10 years.
Jeez.
We're not going to take it out until the end.
That's a lot of money.
How much do we end up with at the end of 10 years?
1,163.39.
Okay, now we're going to take that away, that 1,500. Okay, at the end of the 10 years. So we should finish out with $5,663.39. That's like a $400 difference. Okay. So if you invest money, my husband just invested money for Riley's future for her college, and we can dip in every year and take out money. But if you do that, you lose out in the end. So you're better off just putting the money in and letting it sit and don't touch it.
Is there a certain type of account you can get for college funds?
I don't even remember what he actually put it into.
Probably the savings.
I know like a CD you can't touch once you've put it in. It's got to stay for so long. I want to say he called it a Voya something. We went through Allstate, but it's some account that yes, we can dip into it if we need to, but we're trying not to at this point. All right. So case number 2. Now it's not going to be compounded yearly. It's going to be compounded quarterly, monthly, daily. Okay, so we've changed the formula a little bit. P sub 0 is still how much money you put in. Your I is still the percent that it's going for. Your N is still how many years is this happening. We've now added K. K is how often does this happen a year. Okay, so you need to divide your interest rate by K, and you also need to multiply your N value by K. So if I'm doing quarterly compound interest, how many times a year is that?
4.
4 times a year. Which means it occurs every 3 months. Okay? 4 times a year, every 3 months. The number that you need, though, is that 4. Okay? Quarterly. Quarter is 4 quarters, make $1. 4. So, the first thing they want us to do is identify P sub 0. What is my initial amount that I'm putting into my account? 1,000. They also want us to identify I as a decimal.
0.1.
0.1. 10% as a decimal is 0.1 or 0.10. If you want to leave the 0 on there, it does not matter. My K value. This is quarterly, so it is a 4. Okay, so transitions. If this is happening 4 times a year for 1 year, how many is that?
3.
4.
4. 4 times 1. If it's happening 4 times a year and we're doing it for 5 years, 20 times. Again, 4 times 5. If it's happening 4 times a year for 5.5 years.
22.
22.
Feel me?
Okay, so these are actually the numbers that if you didn't want to plug in the K times N in the top, you could just plug in 4, or you could plug in 20. Okay? I say just let it ride the way it is. So your formula this time is going to look like 1,000 times 1 plus. Then we've got a fraction. On the top of your fraction, you're going to put your interest rate as a decimal. So this is 0.1. In the bottom of your fraction goes your K value, which is a 4. It's then being raised to the 4 times N. Notice, 4 times N is in parentheses. So when you raise it to that power, you need to put it in parentheses. So, after 1 year, what are we subbing in for N?
4.
1.
Yeah.
Okay, your N value is 1. So please plug this in and do 4 times 1. Stop there. I will get an answer from somebody. Do not just shout it out. Then I'm going to show you the shortcut for the calculator.
So, for one.
Times 1.
Oh, my bad. Hold up. Oh, yeah.
So I can put the fraction in parentheses, do you think?
No.
Okay.
Because order of operations, it'll divide that before it adds it to 1. What you gonna do when I call on you and you don't even have a calculator in your hand?
So in the brain.
Get up, go get your
He said
calculator.
something in the brain.
Alexis, what did you get for part B? Alexis, what did you get for part B?
I said 5.
You got 5. You invested $1,000 and at the end of a year you have $5.
I'm pissed.
Does that make sense?
I'm beating everybody.
Oh, I see where I missed
If you work in the day, you got this shit in top one.
Trey, how much money do you have after a year?
I got $1,103. Damn it, and 81 cents.
At the end of the year, you have $1,103.81. I'm gonna need you to call your bank and tell them they got some issues. Oh wait, Alexis don't have a calculator either. No wonder why he can't do the
It's
math.
all in the brain.
Yes, man. You understand how pissed I would be?
Right, I invested $1,000, and when I come to pick it up, you hand me 5.
I'm gonna beat your ass.
Okay, so when we switch to part C, all that we need to change is your N value. So I want everybody to hit second, enter. Did that just bring up what you plugged in the first place?
Yeah.
Yes. Scroll over to 1 and change it to a 5 and hit enter.
I like it.
And you don't have to re-enter all of it again. Why would you want to do double the work? That's dumb. So change the 1 to a 5. What do we get for part C?
1,638 and 62
What was that for a
cents.
second on?
Okay. $1,632.62. Guess what? You can hit second enter again and change the 5 to 5.5.
17, 21, 20, 5, 7.
Good. $1,721.57.
It's not in a
I'm thinking about the movie.
It's so crazy.
He's like picturing this in his head. Like, he's gonna have like a cape on with a big old S for Superman. He's just gonna right in the face.
Dressing like.
All right.
Dressing all black.
Monthly compounded interest means that this occurs every
12 months.
month.
Or month. I'm sorry.
He was going for 12 times a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marcus just said that means my K value is a 12. It happens every month, which means it happens 12 times a year. So K value is a 12. What is P sub 0 here? $2,000. And what is my I as a decimal? 0.15. Okay, so if this is happening 12 times a year for 2 years, how often is that?
24.
24 transitions. Again, 2 years times the K value, which is 12. So basically, you're finding that exponent that you would raise it to if they're asking for transitions. So here, we've got 4.75 times 12, which gives me what?
57.
57 transitions. Okay, so your equation. We invest $2,000. The top part of my fraction is my interest of 0.15, and this is happening 12 times a year. Raised to the 12 times n. Okay, so go ahead and enter that. Do 2 for part B and 4.75 for part C.
I'm sorry, that was left.
Let me see. Alexis, we're investing 2,000 this time, so that means we only end up with $10, right?
You put the in. It's really put it in.
Oh, I got 48.
You put it-
Alexis, what did you get for B?
2,200.
No.
No. Damn, don't make me fuck.
Alexis. Juan, can you fix this light back there, please?
I got 5.
No.
You supposed to put what
Yes,
the
I know.
transition raise to 24 and 8 and 57. Yeah,
Look at the years.
that was good.
Did we manage it yet, Alexis?
What do you plug in for?
It says after 2 years, your n value is a 2.
Wait, what do we do transitions for? 'Cause,
Basically, they're showing you what you could just plug in here instead of doing 12 times.
Oh, okay. That was
Yeah.
confusing. I was
Yeah.
about to put, I was about to
Yeah,
put 20.
so instead of raising it to the 12 times 2, you could just raise it to the 24, and then you'd have to raise it to the 57. I personally would just do the 12 times whatever, but you could, because some people have the issue with not putting that in parentheses, so they just raise it to the 24 to the 57 so they don't have to. Okay? Alexis, 2?
2,694.
94.
0.7.
Fantastic. At the end of 2 years, we have $2,694.70. Anybody else not getting that?
Yeah, I didn't get that either.
I did 24.
So you could either do 12 times 2 or just 24.
No,
So if you're
Oh.
Yeah, I got it.
So
Put the bonuses,
yeah. either do the 12 times 2 or just replace it with the 24.
Okay.
Okay. All right. What do we get for part C?
4,060, 19 cents.
$4,060.19.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Daily compounded interest, which means it occurs every day. If it occurs every day, what is my K value? 365. There is no leap year. You do not count the leap year. No, it's not 0.25 because the leap year occurs every 4 years.
366.
Okay, it's 365.
I got a friend that's in this old.
What do they do on leap years then?
What is P sub 0? Lewis's
Lewis's
girlfriend's birthday is on a leap year. She's like 4.5.
My uncle, yeah, my uncle was born on a leap year. He was like 4 or something like that.
How old's your uncle?
Or no, maybe he's like 5. I don't know.
What? How old is your uncle?
No, he's older than me. Obviously.
He's
He's probably like 30 something.
Okay, so let's say he's like 38.
Would that be like 10? I guess,
Divided
right?
by 4. What's 38 divided by 4?
Let me use the calculator. 'cause we can do that for math.
Something.
9.5.
So he's 9.5 if he's
Look,
38
I just
years
took
old.
a guess, alright.
Jeez.
Okay.
But,
So what is P sub 0 in this problem?
1,500.
1500.
Let me answer.
What is your interest?
0.08.
0.08. Okay, so 1,500 times 1 plus. On the top goes your interest, so 0.08 divided by 365. Raised to the 365 times n. So you now need to find this if we've done it for 3 years and if we've done it for 8 years. Michael, can you just wait till we put it up? Driving me crazy, boy. What the?
I feel like
3 years. He said for 3 years in Smith.
1,500.
Look at you. I'm so proud of you.
He loves me. I'm not. Who's up to get on my case? She gets that too.
Lord.
You need a ladder. No,
But you know what's funny? She was helping us move. She was helping my mama clean the house. And me and Trey was there, and she had a little step stool to clean the top of the shelf, and she still could barely reach.
That was funny.
$1,906.82 after 3 years.
Oh,
I
I got
didn't
the 8.
say, I didn't know if that was right.
It
Kind
is.
of low, to be honest.
See, 8 years is 2,844.
I get you just. Okay, yeah, I don't know what you did.
Time to get up. Get up.
you always
Time for a change. You don't have to sing. Michael, you gonna die sitting down.
What does that say?
You say
Right.
He put 356, not 369.
That's what I did for the last one. Instead of 4.75 for 4.57.
If they asked you, okay, listen, if they ask you, what is the daily interest rate? Okay, so your interest rate is 0.08. Divide that by the fact that we're doing this every day. And you would get
2.19.
0.00021978808. So, Marcus, when you sat there and said, I didn't think that would be high enough, that's because you're not even gaining 2 cents a day. You're gaining less than a penny a day. Okay? You're not really gaining a lot.
That's
So it's not going to go up that much.
That's pretty realistic, though.
It is.
Yeah.
don't even get a penny. Only 5 cents.
Okay.
You can't pay it up.
So it's like,
Add up.
so after 3 years,
How large is the
you're
last
basically
rate?
getting like $100 a year.
So that's right.
Yeah, it's really not doing much. Okay, the last thing we need to talk about is annual yield. Okay, remember when we did the percent of change, where you took your new number divided by your old number and subtracted 1? Guess what? That's annual yield. So what I've done for you is we've gone through and I've compounded. We initially put $1,000 in. Okay, I compounded it annually, quarterly, monthly, and daily.
Oh my goodness.
So
Coming together.
when I do my annual yield, my new value at annual compounded interest was 1,050 divided by 1,000. Means we're at 1.05. You would then subtract off 1, which means 0.05. You're about to earn a seat in the hallway. Stop. So 0.05, which means 5% annual yield. So what this tells us is after a year, your money's only gained 5%. How much interest you've gained in percentage. So at the end of a year, if I compound annually, I've only gained 5%. Okay? If I do the same thing, but this time I compounded quarterly, I've gained 5.094%. Basically, you can drop the 1 and change your decimal to a percentage. So if I compound monthly, I gain 5.116%. And if I compound daily, I gain 5.127%. So if you want to gain the most, which way would you compound? Which one got you the most?
Wait, no.
Monthly.
Yearly.
No, it's daily, yeah.
It's daily.
Come on now.
I didn't write down daily.
Your percentage gets bigger every time.
I didn't say that. I was looking at yearly.
Okay? So if you want the most money, the best way to do it is to compound it daily. Even though it's a very small percent, it's still more than what you would get annually. Okay? All right? So, calculating annual yield. Find the annual yield if the year began with 2,400 and ended with 2,784. So what's my new amount? How much do I have at the end? 2,784. I started with 2,400 and we subtract 1. What do we get? .16, which is what as a percentage? 16% annual yield. So that's saying I've gained 16% of my income that I put in a year. What goes on top in example 2? 3,798 divided by 3,600. Again, minus 1.
What is it? 5%?
0.055 becomes 5.5%. I've gained 5.5% of what I put in. Finally, the last one. What happens if I don't tell you how much money you're putting in? Can you still find annual yield? Absolutely. So this formula should look familiar. Okay, what did we take out?
N.
N. There is no N this time. That's okay. Okay, so everybody asked me last period, why are we using 100? I don't know how much money I'm putting in, but I know I'm putting all of it in. Okay, so that's what that represents. Your I is still the percentage that you're getting for an interest rate. K is still how often is this happening? And again, we always subtract 1. Well, if we want to just stick with percentages, we just subtract 100. So we've got 100 times 1 plus, what's my interest rate?
16.16.
0.16. It still has to be a decimal. Divided by 12. It says compounded monthly, which makes this a 12. Raised to the 12 minus 100 gives me what?
Wait, it's saying percent, so why wouldn't we change it to 100%?
We could change it the 100% to a decimal, but then we'd have to change it back to a percent. If you leave it just as 100, we don't even have to change it. So whatever answer you get is just your answer. So you got 17.23%. So you know how like we subtracted off the 1 and then we had to change it to a percent? If you keep it as a percent for this one, you don't have to change it. It's just extra work. Okay, example 4. I've got 100 plus, whoops, sorry, 1 plus. What goes in top this time?
0.09.
0.09, and in the bottom? 4. We're compounding quarterly. Raised to the 4th minus 100. 9.31% annual yield. So we don't know how much money you've invested or how much you have at the end, but we know if we do it this way, you would gain 9.31% from your original.
You said you're giving
Question.
us this formula.
Huh?
So you're
Yes,
giving-
I'm giving you all of the formulas that you have been given in this chapter. But again, on your final exam, the only ones you're going to be given are the 2 for arithmetic sequences and the 2 for geometric. So keep that in mind. Okay. What you need to be working on